What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here, and welcome to the GSD Mode Podcast. So real quick, before we jump into today's epic, amazing podcast interview, make sure to check us out at gsdmode.com, where you can see previous interviews, as well as a bunch of other free resources that will help you massively grow your real estate business. Also, if you enjoy and find value and see value in the content here at GSD Mode, make sure that you share the show with somebody that you feel can benefit from the content that we are releasing. This show is possible because of all your support, and your support truly means a lot. Now let's jump into today's interview and go have some fun. Peace. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast interview, where every single week I interview top entrepreneurs, top real estate professionals, and those that are just straight up dominating their space. These are people choosing to not live a life of mediocrity, but instead to go out there and create big, amazing, epic lives for themselves, for their families, as well as to have a big impact on others. And today, guys, we got another rock star guest on the show. Our guest today, guys, got his start in sales and really entrepreneurship through door-to-door sales. Breaking record sales. So within his first 4 months selling a pest control, sold 459 sales in 4 months, breaking the company records, which generated over $220,000 in revenue. And today is a regional sales manager, managing over 200 sales reps and helping them, training them, recruiting the talent, and helping them go out there and just dominate at that same craft. So he's recently was invited to speak alongside Jordan Belfort, aka the Wolf of Wall Street, on stage. He also has taken this revenue from his position and all the revenue that's come in from his years of door-to-door sales and now being the regional manager to invest heavily into real estate. And today owns over 60 units, bringing in over $300,000 yearly of gross revenue, which is netting him over $100,000, and just of net yearly revenue continues to grow and grow and grow it. Has become an authority in real estate by building his brand. Dude's just a badass expert when it comes to how to build your own personal brand and get out there and get that recognition. And a dude that's just slaying it. So I'm really stoked and honored to have Chandler Smith on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. I think that's the best intro I've ever gotten. So thank you. That was so kind.
Yeah, no, it's an honor, man. I mean, you're a dude that's tearing it up. You're a dude that's not afraid of the hustle, man, getting out there to do what it takes. And it's paid off massively, man. You're on stages now. Your brand is established. You have a lot of passive income to the point where you could just hang up your helmet, on all the other stuff. But I know you love doing it, right? And just growing this, just an epic life overall, man. So I love it, dude. So before we get into what you're doing today, man, I'm always intrigued in our guest journeys that led them here in the first place. Like, how did all this begin, man? How did you, thinking of, I'm going to get a summer gig doing door-to-door sales, selling a pest control product, right? How did that start in the first place?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Honestly, I went and I was going to college. I did my first semester up there, and I needed money. I was mooching off my parents. I'd ran out of everything that I'd made through high school. And so I went and I applied everywhere. I mean, McDonald's, Wendy's, every fast food joint, every place I could find. I think I sent out about 20 different resumes, and I couldn't get anyone to hire me. I didn't even get an interview. So I'm like, man, what am I going to do? This is a joke. I'd mowed lawns before and done other stuff to make money. So I was starting to think about that. And I had a friend that approached me and said, hey, man, like, I made some pretty good money knocking doors, selling pest control. So in my mind, I see him with his Raid bottle, like, knocking doors, telling people he's going to go spray their house. And at first I was pretty opposed, but I said, you know what, heck, this kid can go make money. I think I can do it too. So I went out there, and my first week I got smashed. We were selling, 1-year contracts where the company goes and services the home and, makes the bugs go away. And I went a whole week without making a dime. And so at this point I was really questioning my decision. But I stuck it out, and finally I pulled in one sale, and within an hour or two, I had pulled in 3 more right after that. It was like everything just clicked. And so that day, I mean, you make between $100 and $200 per sale. So all of a sudden I'd made all this money that first day, and then things just exploded. Every day after that, I continued to get better and sell more. And I ended up finishing that summer. I made $96,000 and broke the rookie record in under 4 months. And so after doing that, I was like, holy cow, there's something to this sales thing, and everything else is kind of history from there.
Out of curiosity, man, did you finish out college, or were you like, dude, this?
It's the great question everyone asks me. So I stayed in college all the way through while I was recruiting, training, finding sales reps. The next year I had a team of 12, and then it grew to 30, 75 until, the last 3 years, we've done, just my region of guys alone has done over 10 million in revenue 3 years in a row now. And with college, I just kept kicking it down the road and taking less and less credits. So I've done everything to get my accounting degree, but the internship. And so I'm still enrolled in college, but I keep kicking it semester by semester because I don't have time to do an internship, nor do I want to go fetch coffee for some accountant. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, love it, dude. So then, it sounds like that first week, right? When you talk about you're just getting defeated, you're getting smashed, you're getting rejected, and just the power of that one win. And man, sales is such a rewarding job, and it's amazing because there is no income cap, right? You can do whatever you want to do with it, but that rejection is tough, right? What was the difference, during that time? Was it, and before you got that first win, or maybe if we take this into even those that you're training, right? Is it really just a perspective mindset deal, or by getting that first win, were you able to know that, okay, hey man, maybe it takes 15 no's to a yes, or like, what was the difference between, once you got that win, because then after that you were able to go out there and lead to, I think you said what, you had 3 sales in the next hour or so.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously there was a big self-confidence boost, or different approach in your energy, with it. So I guess I know I'm kind of all over the place with this question, but the thing that I get constantly from our listener base, which is made up of mainly real estate agents, is, man, they just have such a difficult time with rejection, right? Whether it's call reluctance or door knocking reluctance, whatever it is, really boils down to when they're getting smashed like you were, they just have such a tough time with it. And a lot of times they don't keep with it long enough to get those wins.
Yeah. No, this is the great question, right? With 200 sales reps, I'm getting a call multiple times per day saying, Chandler, what do I need to do to get to that next level? What is the secret? What is the trick? And I think it's a combination of a couple of things, but it's incredible how much your mindset, and you'll probably think I'm crazy, but really the aura you put off matters. I have reps that are willing to work so hard, but they've got this negative mindset. And I'm sorry, when you knock on someone's door and they open it, they can see instantly that you look like the crap just got beat out of you. You can see that in someone. And so if your mindset isn't in the right place and you're not able to get back to a place where you're positive and confident and happy on every door, you're going to get smashed. I think there are 2 things that I want to add to this. I have a sales rep that every year has sold 250 accounts for me. So he's making, $50,000, $60,000. He'd never worked all the way up the pay scale. And this year he's going to sell 650 accounts, probably make over $150,000 in one summer knocking. And I asked him, dude, what was the difference? You worked for me for 3-4 years. Why this year has it just exploded? And he said, man, it's first off my mindset. Like I just expect to sell better, but then I've created habits that now I don't have to think about. Every day I go through the motions of exactly what I'm supposed to do. And that helps me stay positive and upbeat. And another thing I'd add to it is, and this is a Jordan Belfort thing, but he loves tying to anchoring. When he has huge successes, he's found ways. He even has something he'll smell to bring back the emotions of successes. And so if you can anchor to those big successes, so when you are getting battered around, you can bring back those emotions and those vibes and those confident, or I guess that confident mindset. I think the combination of having the right habits and knowing how to anchor back to the proper mindset are huge.
So then when it comes to mindset, because it is, I mean, really that's where everything starts, right? It's really 90% of our success is, what's the saying? Control your mind, control the world, right? How important is it to start with the belief in your product? Right? And maybe that was, and I don't know, I've never really thought about that before. I've always just assumed that you had to really truly believe in your product. But when you're, like when you first got started, you're in college, maybe you hadn't owned a home yet personally. Yeah, right? Like, dude, like, especially living in Phoenix, Arizona, lots of bugs, scorpions, whatever. Like, dude, I will not go without my pest control company. Like, I know the importance of it. And every single client of mine that buys a home, it's like, dude, you've got to, get your monthly pest control going, right? But before I became a homeowner, like I may have not known that. Right? So I don't know if that maybe is a false assumption I had over the years, because maybe when you first started, you didn't really have a belief in the product because you hadn't been a customer yet. But can you, like, where does it start? Is there a belief in the product? Do you have to be 100% fully sold on what you're selling? And then after that, I would like to go deep into kind of those daily rituals, if you will, and some of those anchoring suggestions that you give with that to keep us in that right state over and over.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. And it's something that, worries a lot of people before they get into sales and when they're in it. And I think you do. You've got to have a good product. I mean, you've got to have something that you can deliver on the things that you're promising. And that's huge. I think it plays a big role. But what I will tell you is any product that you sell, you are going to have doubters that you're going to run into. I mean, when I'm on the doors, I can't tell you how many times you're going to have someone say that, oh, your crap doesn't work, or it's garbage, or we don't need that, or it's bad for the environment, or whatever they're going to say. And whether it's true or not, I think you've got to have the ability or the confidence in yourself to really find success. Now, the product is important. You can't sell crap and do well. But at the same time, you're going to have those negative things coming about your product. And you've got to have confidence in yourself of saying, regardless of what someone else is going to say or do, I know that I'm going to be able to connect with someone, and I know I'm going to be able to deliver. And I think it's a perfect combination of those two, of being with the right company, the right product, but also having the right mindset, because you can have the best product in the world and you can be super confident in it. But if you're not confident in yourself, you're still going to get smashed.
Okay. Yep. Love it, dude. And then, going back to the anchors that you talked about, and I love the example that you brought up with your one of your sales reps, because at the end of the day, dude, the summer's so long. There's only so many hours of daylight or acceptable hours that you can knock on somebody's door. Yeah, right. And you can only, get to each house so fast. So I'm guessing that the amount of doors that he was knocking on was no different, right? I mean, maybe he sped up to some more, but again, that creates a capacity for everybody. But for him to increase his sales that massively, triple his sales, right, or whatever in a 4-month period, I mean, that's insane. And you talked about it was really just being able to step into a more positive mindset, by doing these daily rituals, right? Where then you don't even have to think about it. Can you go a little bit deeper into, what you've done personally and what you train your guys to do out there, to get in that right positive mindset each and every day, right? Because it's like this whole motivation thing doesn't last. I can go watch a video that pumps me up, and that might work for a few days, but eventually it wears off, right? So it's just kind of that daily intention to this, so what suggestions would you have there?
Yeah. Again, it's a pretty broad question. So I've got a couple of things, but I think in sales, a lot of times we hear, oh, it's a numbers game, right? If you put in enough time, it's going to buff out for you. And there's a lot of truth to that. Like, that's a true statement. However, there are reps that knock 200 doors that sell 0 accounts, and reps that knock 200 doors that consistently sell 8 accounts. And so when you look at that, it's not a numbers game. And I think coming to the realization that the training that you put in, the skill set that you acquire, the mindset that you're in does affect how many you're going to sell with the same number of doors. And so with my reps, the big things that I really push to make sure that they stay in that mindset are, first off, making sure they're getting the proper training. I mean, we have the best verbal, nonverbal, paraverbal training around. And I love the fact that we can give them that training so that they know not only what to say, but how to say it, how to control their body language, how to read the other person. And I think having that skill set plays a much bigger role than a lot of times we give credit to it for, because it's not just showing up and being Mr. Positive, but you got to be Mr. Positive and putting in the time to acquire that skill set. I think then it is, using the skill set. A lot of times we'll get guys out on the doors and they know what they're supposed to say and they know how to say it. But then when they're challenged by someone, it's intimidating to have someone say, no, like, you're the 10th guy to come knock on my door this week. I don't want to talk to you. And to have the right resolve to be able to push through that, because everyone's going to say no immediately. And I think being able to get into a place where it's like, all right, I'm not surprised by someone saying no. I'm expecting that. I know that that's what's coming. And I know that everyone in the first 20 seconds when I talk to them is going to say a lie because they just don't want someone on their door. And if I can connect with them, then I'm going to have success. And so I think those are big things to, mentally prepare before you go out, because you know that you've got that skill set and you know that you have an impact rather than just knocking on the door. And then from there, I think proper goal setting, I think proper habits to where, you are not getting there and it's hard to get out of the car. I think it's kind of a combination of all of those things, but it's incredible how if you give a sales rep the right training, that really carries over into a good mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to that with being able to identify, like when you talked about setting the right goals. Yeah. Right. Cause if you look at like what you've done, dude, right. You've been able to go out there and, just by growing or starting off by growing those door-to-door sales, right? That revenue, then you were able to go out there. And I mean, truly, this was a vehicle that allowed you to create financial freedom, right? Which I think most, at the end of the day, most salespeople or entrepreneurs, that's what they really want. To be able to do what they want, when they want, with who they want, to have full control of their life and create a life worth living, right? And really tapping into that. At what point did you really tap into, kind of putting those big picture goals, right? That allowed this vehicle to feed that big picture goal. And what kind of a difference did that make with your overall production results?
It's a great question. I think, and hopefully I'm not taking this too far off, but I see so many people that they're saying, I want to do what I love, right? I want to have passive income. They all want this cherry at the end of the road that they see all of these other people have. And maybe you disagree with me, but I just don't believe you get to that place. You get to that mindset without some serious sacrifice and hard work. That first week where I didn't sell a single account, if I told you I loved sales, it would be a total lie. I hated sales. It was the worst job I'd ever done because it sucked, because I wasn't making money and people were batting me around all day. But I made a commitment and I pushed through some of those initial struggles and sacrifices to where I can honestly tell you now, I get hyped to go knock doors when I get the opportunity to go train guys. I love that interaction with people. I love how talented and good I've gotten at getting someone that literally yelled at me saying, get off my property. And 5 minutes later, they're handing me their credit card. Like, I love that. And I would tell you that if you want to create a passive income, if you want a bigger vision, if you want to get down the road, do some research up front and decide the direction you want to take, but then commit to something. Do something hard until you're good at it before you give up on it. Because if you're just doing the first, 2 days of excitement of like, oh, maybe I'm a salesman, or maybe I'm an entrepreneur, or maybe I'm a real estate agent, or whatever it is, I'm sorry, you're not going to love it in the first 2 days. It's going to be hard. And so I think for me, I did something really hard and I was rewarded with a great amount of money. And then that really helped to change my mindset. That's where I was like, wow, I'm sitting on, all this money. I've got to find a place to put it. So I started looking at bonds, mutual funds, all of these other places to invest money. And I realized that, in my opinion, real estate is the best place to have your money, because you're getting cash flow, principal pay down, appreciation on your properties, huge tax benefits. And I said, you know what, this is the path I want to go down. And I had another 1.5 to 2 years of something that really wasn't super fun, learning how to find a good return, learning how to put in offers, learning how to figure out where I really wanted to put this money I'd worked hard for. And then once I had a couple of properties, then I was in love with that. That was a real passion. And so I think, I don't know, maybe people, it works for them this way, where 2 days in, they're just like, oh, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. But For me, it wasn't that way. I loved hard work and I was willing to put that in, and that helped me find a bunch of other passions that now have not only given me passive income, but given me something that I wake up excited every day to go and do.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it, dude. So then, you mentioned something previously about it not really being a numbers game. Of course the numbers matter, but when you talk about the skill set of because again, there's only so many doors that you might be able to knock, or leads that you can follow up with, or in real estate open houses that you can do, right? But then with your skill set, we're able to convert at a much higher rate. And you talked about your verbal, nonverbal, skill sets with that. And what's cool is, I know with your company, you guys are doing door-to-door pest control sales, but with real estate, yeah, there's a lot of door knocking that can be one approach that you take, but then these skill sets really pull over to everything else that we're doing, right? Because no matter what, at some point, whatever your lead generation method is, you're getting face-to-face. And for us in real estate, the sell is getting them to become a client, right? The product that we're selling is getting them to commit to us, right? So at some point, no matter what, it's all face-to-face sales, right? Which is what these skill sets that you really mastered comes down to being. Can you just give us some best practices and tips and some of the things that you train your people on that just crush it for you guys that you would give to real estate agents to develop that skill set, to go out there and close at a higher ratio?
Definitely. And I'll throw a couple and you tell me how long you want me to go, because this is stuff that I could talk about the entire day. Like, I love the art of the sale, the difference between a short sale and a long sale. And I think, I'd love to give as many tips as I can. I think first off, for realtors, something that'd be really valuable is that first impression, because you need to connect with someone at some point to be able to turn them into a client. Now, once you've got them as a client, I think it's a longer sale, and maintaining that good relationship and keeping them happy and going through that. And I might give a couple of hints on that, but just in the short sale, I would call it, or making that first impression, there are a couple of things that everyone does terribly wrong. All right. First off, it is your body language. And you've heard it. What you say is so small in comparison to the way that your body is moving and the tonage and pitch of your voice. And so with your body language, I think when you're connecting with someone, there are a couple of things that will really help people. First off, slow down. A lot of times people are fidgety. They're leaning from side to side. They're moving their hands a lot and they're moving them quickly. And so right when you meet someone, slow down. All right. Not only your voice. You need to slow your voice way down, but slow down your indicators, we'd call them, with your hands. Make sure that they're not moving too quickly. Make sure that you're getting on someone's team. So when you have a first interaction, my goal is within the first 30 seconds to not be facing off with them, but to be side to side with them. Because then we're on the same team. It's hard for them to shut the door, but they feel comfortable with you. Where a lot of times when you're squared up with someone, it's like that fight or flight is starting to kick in, where it's like, man, are we about to duel? Where you want to get on their team. You want to make them feel comfortable. You want to make it so they're not smelling your breath. And so you can buddy up with them. You also make it, by doing that, you make it a lot easier to keep good eye contact. Because when you're talking, you can have your indicators out and have good eye contact breaks. But then when they're speaking or you're speaking and you make eye contact, you can have planned times where you're making eye contact and you're sincere. A lot of times when we're faced up with someone, we keep eye contact, but then we're looking down, we're looking up, or we're looking to the side, where you want to make sure that all that you do with eye contact is planned, so that when you make eye contact, it's good eye contact. And when you break it, it's for a reason of something you're talking about out in front of you, or using those indicators, because that's going to show your confidence. The other thing that I see a lot of people do, and I deal with a lot of realtors, and it always cracks me up, but we call it an up pitch. So right when you meet someone, because you're trying to make a good impression, you do something called an up pitch. And I'll just give you an example. And I am terrible at up pitching now, because I've trained for so long and hard with all my reps. But an up pitch is where at the end of your words, your pitch is higher than at the beginning. So for instance, if I'm talking like this and I make it sound like everything I'm saying is kind of a question, then I sound super insecure. So if I'm like, hey, do you want to buy a house from me? I sound like an idiot and I'm not confident in what I'm doing. So when you're speaking with someone or when you're trying to close them or you're trying to pitch them, make sure that you're coming down with your pitch so that you sound confident in everything that you say. And you can kind of hear that in my voice now, where every time my pitch is coming down, it's going to make you sound a lot more confident. So those are a couple quick tricks that I think a lot of people make a mistake with. And I said this earlier, but your speed is so important. If you're talking a million words a second, which a lot of times we do when we're trying to make a good first impression, we just sound sketchy. So make sure that you slow things down, that you slow down your indicators, that you're making good eye contact breaks, that you're down pitching, and right away that's going to help your first impression quite a bit.
Yeah. And I remember learning that the hard way, my first time on a listing presentation that I lost, because I'm a high energy guy, especially when I am talking about something I'm really excited about, right? And called the home seller after the listing presentation. They made the decision to go with somebody else. And I just wanted some feedback, right? And they were like, honestly, you just were so high energy. You just scared the hell out of us. Right. And then I was like, oh, damn, right. And then I went down the path of learning disc profiles and trying to kind of match, some people might be drawn to higher energy and some that's more bold, and some people get turned off by that. But they're everything that you just talked about, dude, is so important. But the things that, at least in the real estate industry, like there's no training on that stuff. You don't hear about that stuff. Yeah, right. We don't talk about eye contact or how you pronunciate or your tone at the end of sentences. And so I love that stuff, man. And I'm so glad that you brought that up. Then from there, dude, as far as, like Gary V and his, jab, right hook,
Yeah.
whatever, because when it comes to the connection, like focusing on developing the connection first and finding out what's important to them and listening, before you go into the actual sales pitch, with that, can you give some best practices there, instead of just kind of catch them off guard with a sales pitch and right off the gate in their face. And I'm asking in a way of like, I don't know what is the best. I've never done sales. So
yeah, no, so first off, I love a lot of the stuff that Gary Vee has. And I think with a relationship, for instance, with me, I'm constantly trying to put out content to help people, whether it's about real estate investing. I mean, if you check out my YouTube, I'm putting out everything I can to help people. And I feel like that's a great place for a jab. So if I was a realtor, I'd be trying to put out everything I could, be helpful, give them information, do everything to say, hey, I am providing this awesome service just because I care about people. There's no underlying motives. Now, with that being the case, I'm always trying to bring value to my sales reps. I'm always trying to give them the best experience. We're always trying to give our customers the best experience by adding, an app to our service and all of these things. And I think a lot of times that's what the jab should be, is bringing value. I think where I might disagree slightly is at the end of the day, it's your job to go and sell, right? And I think if you try too hard to jab, and you're kind of like trying to sneak into actually closing people or pitching them, a lot of times that can come off sketchy because people think you're just doing it purely because you're trying to get their business, and you wait a while and you kind of beat around the bush. And so my advice to people is bring value and be sincere about it. Bring value because you really care about people. But then when you go into sales mode, go into sales mode. You're passionate about your product. There's no reason to beat around the bush. If I'm on someone's door and I'm pitching, there's not a whole lot of jab. There's a whole lot of, my service is better than any other service. And right now I can hook you up with a much better price. And there's no reason for us to become friends over the next 2 weeks because you're going to sign up in 5 minutes for a service that you're going to be pumped about. And I think finding where each of those need to be used is hard. But what I would tell you, if I was a realtor, now I haven't been a realtor, so maybe I'm off in this, but with my sales reps in recruiting, I think it's very similar where we're trying to talk someone into coming and giving up 4 months of their life to come work for us. And so with that scenario, right off the bat, I tell my reps that are in a training or a leadership position, win the battle, not the war. So our goal with these reps is to get them in the door for a free lunch. That's their only goal when they meet someone is, hey, get them in the door and so that we can pitch them. And so I think as a realtor, I'd say, all right, figure out what your battles are. And if you're out knocking doors as a realtor, find a way to get a sit down meeting with them so that you can pitch them what you have to offer and make that your main goal. All right. Rather than just like giving value and disappearing. Because for me, if you're going to go knock doors, I think you've got to get to that next step. You've got to find something to get them in and have the opportunity to pitch them. And that doesn't mean you can't keep those jabs coming with a bunch of other ways that you can bring value. So does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And I love that you brought it up and laid it out the way that you did, because it's like, look, for you to give the jabs like you talked about, well, dude, you're very established. You're a real estate investor. You got all these things that you can bring to the table. But for a brand new sales rep that's coming to work for your company, or let's just say a brand new real estate agent, that they're like, well, okay, hey, I don't have months to go out there and create content. Yeah, I can maybe start working on that stuff, but dude, I need now clients. Yeah, right. Getting that now sell. So when it comes to getting the now sell, right. And I love that you're like, hey, you're going to do business with me in the next 5 minutes. We don't need to be friends, in the next 2 weeks. So when you're in, and when I hear that, just because I built my business mainly off open houses, which is, it's not door knocking, but it's very similar. They're coming in, you got a short window to make an impression, and you want to try to set that appointment while you're there, or while they're there in the property. So when it comes to getting that sell in that quick time frame, if you will, but I think I lost you. Oh, there we go. When it comes to getting that sell in that small time frame, that window, can you just kind of walk us through a little bit of the framework of what that looks like finding out is it you tapping into what's important to them, what their pains are, if they currently have a company and what they like or not like before you come to the pitch? Or is it just they open up the door and you're talking about your company, the superiority of it, and just asking right out of the gate for the sell?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So everyone needs to be primed. All right. Even in a short sale, you need to prime your customers. So first off, it's the things we talked about in making a good impression. Right away, they need to trust you and like you. And they're going to make that judgment in the first 5-10 seconds by a lot of your paraverbal, nonverbal, verbal communication skills that we talked about earlier. And there are a bunch of others, but I'll get into like the model I would follow. First off, I think you've got to have a hook. All right. You've got to get something that's going to grab them to get them later. And you've got to create urgency in some way. And if you can do those two things, then I really want to push the yes, yes principle. So my goal, and my reps make fun of me for this, because when I speak, when I'm dealing with someone one-on-one, I'm always head nodding, right? When I say a statement, I'm head nodding and I'm waiting for their response to get a head nod or a yes. And so with my pitch, the whole purpose of the first 30 seconds to a minute, I want to try and get their head just like this. I want them saying yes, yes, yes. Just nodding their head, getting in the mood. That's going to get a endorphin release, first of all, but it's priming them for getting the yes later to whatever that commitment is that you want. And so everything in our pitch is about, creating that urgency, making them feel like, yeah, I've got to act now, rather than, oh, give me your card and I'll act later. You really want to get that appointment set or that service set. And so for us, creating urgency, it's like, look, we can do a deal today. If I was a realtor, I'd try to find something to create some kind of urgency. Like, you've got extra time in the week, or you've got this extra value you can add, or you've got X, Y, and Z to get someone to make a decision now rather than later. Because if you're in an open house, you want to get that set now. So find a way to create that urgency, and then find a way to build up value in your service. We follow a model of preface, feature, benefit. And I'm throwing a ton of crap at you, but essentially the real goal is to point out what you think their problem might be with your preface, tell them what you're going to do about it with your feature, and then, bringing in the benefit that that's going to do with what you're doing for it. And all along, while we're doing those preface, feature, benefits, we're focusing on getting yeses and head nods. So to give you an example, I'm trying to tie this into, being a realtor. If I was a realtor, I would say, right now the market is absolutely insane and interest rates are super low. So it is an extraordinary time to sell your home. And what's really cool about me is I'm with an agency that is going to do so much more X, Y, and Z. And that's going to not only give you the ability to sell your home, but to sell your home even above market right now a lot quicker than you would somewhere else. Now, that's totally a garbage preface, feature, benefit, because I haven't planned it out. And what I would tell you is make sure that you've got all of your preface, feature, benefits. You know what you have to bring to the table, So you have those and you can implement those head nods. And once you've got an opportunity to build value in yourself, then you need to get to a close. And I think so often we are terrified of closing as humans, but we also as humans want to be closed. We want you to get to the part where you give us an opportunity to say, yes, I want it. No, I don't. And when you close, you don't want to give them a yes or no option. You want to give them a yes or a yes option. So if I was a realtor and I'd gone through, I'd built urgency, I'd preface feature benefit, I've gotten head nods, I've gotten that endorphin release where they're smiling and head nodding with me, then I'm going to give them a close like, perfect, I've got spots tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. What works better for you? Or perfect, I'm free tomorrow or the next day. Which day works with your schedule? It's always an option close where the only option is yes, rather than so like, you think you want to come grab lunch? Like that's garbage. So give them two options where either option you get them where you want them to be.
So then, in order to just kind of create some framework for the preface feature benefit, so it sounds like the preface is really just having a deep understanding of your customer, like what their pains and their pleasures are, like what the problems are and what they want.
And right? A lot of times it's not an understanding of the customer because you might have just met them. It's an understanding of their situation. For us, it's bugs. And so it's like, how you get the spider webs out in the garage, right? You're going to get a yes and an agree, a head nod with that. For you, it might be like, the market's crazy right now and interest rates are super low. Like that's a point, and maybe not even a pain point, but something where they know it is something that they need to capitalize on. Now, if there's more of a pain point, you want to push on those pain points or the problem with your preface.
So then the feature is the feature, the services that you provide specifically, and then the benefit would be the after result of the feature.
Yeah. So, going back to pest control, and I probably shouldn't try and pretend to be a realtor here with you, but with pest control, the preface is, how you get the spider webs up in the garage, especially up by the sensors. Everybody knows that builds up. The feature would be, I need to go in and sweep those out and treat them around the entire garage. All right, that's my feature. That's what I'm going to do. The benefit then is by me doing that, not only are you not going to see any more of those webs, but we're going to put a barrier so you're never seeing those spiders again inside your home. And so with your feature, that's exactly what you're going to do about it. But the benefit is what they're going to get out of it. And that's what they care about.
Yeah. Love it. So then how important is it? Because when you mentioned of when you gave the realtor example of, hey, with my agency, not only will we get your home sold, we'll get you above market and do it in a quicker time than anybody else. How important is it to establish those features inside your own business to really study your competition? Are you guys breaking down SWOT analysis and like really understanding what your competition is to differentiate yourselves?
100%. And I think this is another thing that I see so many realtors make a big mistake with is I say, you know what, like I haven't really signed with any realtor, but I use these couple and they'll be like, oh, who do you use? And I'll tell them, they'll be like, oh, their agency's garbage. Like, don't go with them. They're trash. That never works because obviously if I'm using someone, I already have had a connection with them. And so I think first off, you've got to know your competition extremely well. You've got to know what you do better than your competition. And then when you go against your competition, you've got to find a way to still make them sound awesome. Like, oh, they're a great company. They do X, Y, and Z. Because if you can tell them what they do well, they're going to instantly say, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. So tell what they do well and put that other company here, but then come in and put you here with all the stuff that you do on top of what they do and say, yeah, like we're going to do all of that awesome stuff they do. And really, they're a great company. I'm sure you've been happy. The difference with us is we're going to do that, but we're also going to do this, this, and this, because then you're not tearing down a company that they already have made a decision to follow. You're not tearing them down by tearing that connection away, but you're making them think, holy cow, if they're good and they're great, I want to go with great. I want all of these extra services, all of these extra things that they have to offer that this person couldn't. And those don't have to be crazy services. They have to be what differentiates you. Maybe you're the guy that anytime someone calls, you promise you're back within an hour. Maybe that's not you. Maybe it's X, Y, and Z, but you've got to figure out what differentiates you that is going to make sure that that hits some of the pain points of the person that you're trying to sell.
Yeah. Love it, dude. When you talked about getting the head nods, Yeah, right. And I saw before we hit the record button, your library in the back with Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets, and he talks about this and is a perfect webinar training. About whether it's a webinar or speaking on stage, he can always indicate how much money, let's just say speaking on a stage, of sales that he's going to do after, based on how many heads are nodding in the audience. And he talks a lot about like future pacing and asking questions like of what would your life be like if these things happen. What are you doing to get those head nods, right? Like when it comes to specific questions, to make that happen, just to,
Yeah,
there is, obviously you're saying, I mean, you listen to the best sales trainers on the planet, right? That's something that they all have in common, of the importance of that, right? But then it becomes hard to sit there and think sometimes in our own industries of how to get people, nodding their heads.
totally. I think there's a lot out there about asking the right questions, and I think that's huge. And I'm going to kind of leave that, and I want to teach you a trick that if everyone uses this, it will be a game changer. Now, earlier I talked about making eye contact and making eye contact breaks. Now, this is huge. If I have a pitch, I have every portion of my pitch planned when my sales rep should look at the customer and when they should look away with an indicator. So for instance, there's a part where they talk about the neighbors. They're going to look and talk to the neighbors. We've planned these breaks so they're not too far apart. They're just far enough apart to where you can keep comfortable eye contact and have eye contact breaks. But here's what the trick is to get yeses. Even if you're not asking questions, when you're making statements that you want someone to agree with you on, or when you're saying something that they probably already know is true, you are going to break eye contact right before, and then you're going to finish. And the second that you make eye contact, you're going to give them the biggest real smile you can and give them a head nod. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's why the eye contact breaks are there. So when you break eye contact, you make it again and you give that smile and head nod while you're talking, it is absolutely incredible, because when they make that eye contact with you, they're just going to be like this. It's literally a Jedi Mind trick. And if you watch me when I'm selling someone, every time I break eye contact and I make eye contact again, they're just going like this. And I even did this in a demonstration. I'll tell my sales reps, I'll bring one of them up that hasn't worked for me before. And I'll say, all right, I don't want you to smile, and I don't want you to head nod, and I don't want you to say yes. You have to do everything in your power to not do those things. And just by using this trick enough times over and over while I'm pitching, by the end, they're like, oh, like they keep messing up, they're head nodding, they're trying so hard not to. But every time they're head nodding, they're getting that endorphin release. They're being primed. And if I can get a guy to head nod when he's trying not to, imagine how many head nods you're going to be able to get when they're not even thinking about it.
Yeah, love it. Powerful stuff, man. So then when it comes to objections, right, it's something that comes up, right, in sales. Like you exponentially usually get rejected or have objections come up than not a lot of times. And, my experience, at least with real estate, is almost every objection in most cases. Sometimes somebody's just a blatant a-hole, and it's tough to maybe overcome that, maybe not. But for me, it's, I just haven't, I guess, invested the time at that point. It's just somebody maybe I don't want to work with. But in most cases, at least in my experience in real estate, it's I look at objections as typically just a lack of education. And that may be a lack of some missing education information that my presentation is lacking. Maybe a lack of education on my behalf of something I don't know about them or their situation, right? Or on their behalf, right? Lack of education, and being able to tap into that and really just, tapping into that education element. But what would you, and I don't know if you find any truth to that, because this is your expertise and definitely not mine. I don't know if that's something that you'd agree with or not. And what kind of tips would you give on being able to overcome those objections and really tapping into, what the reason is for those, and again, how to overcome those?
Yeah, I love this question. First off, there are smoke screens and there are objections. Anything that comes up that's trying to end the conversation in the first 30 seconds is a smoke screen, and it doesn't even deserve a resolve, because instantly people are just going to throw it out because they don't want to talk to you anymore. So if you're getting it in the first 30 seconds, I literally want you to look them in the eye and say, sure, great, perfect. One of those words, and just pick up where you left off. If you're in a cold call situation. Now, if you're not in a cold call situation, everything is going to be an objection. And I agree with you. They need to be educated, but I've had lots of sales reps that are educators, but they don't have any impact on the emotion of the buyer. Now, you can educate someone to death with all of the reasons that they should go with you, and they can make perfect sense. But if you don't connect on an emotional level with them, all the education in the world isn't going to get them to change their opinions. That's where a lot of the paraverbal, nonverbal, verbal communication skills come in. But one of the biggest mistakes I see with resolving a concern is we do just that. We just resolve it. Where if you take every concern and you not only know how to resolve it, but you know how to make it a good thing, then you will resolve every concern and make people love your product. And what I mean by this is, for instance, if someone brings up a concern and I just explain why that shouldn't be a concern, that doesn't grab people. But if when they say, hey, this is my concern, and they say, oh, awesome, that is actually the best part, or, oh, I'm so glad you brought up, that's the best thing that we do, so that you've not only taken a resolve and resolved it, but you've made them think that they've brought up another reason they should buy. That is a total game changer. And so what you need to practice is knowing every concern you might get, so that the second they bring it up, you can confidently say, oh, I love that you brought that up. That's the best part about what we do. And then you have something to say after that, because if you don't have something to say after that, you're toast. But for our service, for instance, if someone says, look, like, I don't want to get it done because I've got guys working on my yard the next month. They're tearing stuff up. I don't know about the safety with it, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to say, honestly, that is the number one reason in the summer that people jump on board with us. Because if you're doing a lot of work out in the yard, that's getting all the bugs riled up. I'm going to not only take care of that problem, but I'm going to give you a warranty. So if any time during the construction you see a single bug, you call me, I'm going to be able to come out completely free. So I don't see there being a better time for you to sign up with us than right now, or the mornings or the afternoons usually better for you. I'm going to go right into my close and I'm going to be good to go. But do you see how instead of just saying, oh, that's okay, that's something that really isn't a problem, it'll be safe for the people and we can come in and get it done. It's like, yeah, okay, but still, like, they're out working on it. I don't want you here unless you give me a reason that that's a good thing and that's why you should be here.
Yeah, love it. Powerful stuff, dude. How important is follow-up, to what you guys do specific to door-to-door, and with the product that you have? Because it is, when you're buying a pest control, it's an ongoing thing where people, are buying and selling real estate every 5 to 7 years or so. So I don't know if follow-up is the same level of importance or not, or whatever, but like maybe they're like, well, hey, I'm under contract right now with a company and it's not out until 90 days from now. And
yeah.
They don't, can't start, or no matter what you're trying to overcome the objection, they're just firm on that. Right. What do you do for the follow-up, and how important is that?
I would say with pest control, it works, but it's not something I'm training super hard because it's not important on a short sell. However, with me, I'm working with 200 sales reps. And when you're working with sales reps, you find really talented sales reps that are also really lazy. And so I've had people that I either know they're going to be a good sales rep or they have been a good sales rep, and then they just want to take a summer off. And I would tell you, follow up with those people, sincerely caring, is huge, because that's a longer sale. That's a relationship that's going to last forever if I can get it to you, so that they can continue to work with me. I can continue to bring value. And so with my sales reps that have worked with me in past years that maybe decide not to come back out and do something different with their life, or even those reps that I sit down with that consider doing the job and don't do it the first summer, 100%. I mean, I'm putting them on an emailing list, giving all the value that I can. I'm finding ways to reach out to them consistently. I'm following them on Facebook and Instagram. And when I see they bring up things I'm liking, I'm commenting. I mean, I've got a secretary that helps me do some of this stuff, but I want to keep a good connection with people. And even if they're not working with me, there are people that are other real estate investors. There are people that are other connections, in their field that maybe I think I could connect with them later. And I think that consistent follow-up and giving value is where we go back to that jab situation, where Worst case scenario, they never bring you any financial value, but you've made an awesome connection. You've made a good friend. You've made someone you can call if you need a favor, or you've made someone that as you follow up, you can bring them back on to work for you. And so for me, those people are people that every single year I know they're talented. I'm going to reach back out to them. I'm going to do everything that I can to say, hey, let me buy you lunch again. Let's just sit down and talk about your goals, your plans. If nothing else, maybe I can help you think about investing in real estate, but I'm going to get them back in the door. And of course, when I've got them in the door, I'm going to say, look, I've got a situation where I could really use you with this team. I really want you back. I want to make it worth your while. What could we do to make it happen? What could we fix that maybe made you step away? And I think that's the place where that could carry over to real estate of, yes, follow-up is huge because people consistently buy and sell homes. I mean, I bought the home I'm living in now 2 years ago, and I'm already like, man, it'd be nice to maybe consider getting a different home or upgrading or doing X, Y, and Z. Which one of these realtors am I going to use? I promise you it's going to be the one that consistently reaches out to see how I'm doing and consistently is sending me emails what the market's doing, even though I've probably already got that information. That means a lot to me. It's an email I can pop open and say, hey, he cares about me. He cares about my education. He's the guy I'm going to call because he's made sure to stay connected.
Yeah, awesome, dude. So then, now you're in a position where you're constantly hiring, recruiting, and training sales reps. And, so many real estate agents, as they continue to create success, they start to overcome capacities. Yeah, right. They typically go two routes. Either they open their own brokerage or they start a team. Right. But either way, I mean, a team is really just brokerage inside of a brokerage. But, to go out there and grow and eliminate those capacities. Next thing they might have 20 agents, working for them. And really that becomes the role that you're in now of finding talent, training them and getting that production up. But the number one thing I hear from mainly team leaders, and broker owners, but I work with more team leaders and broker owners personally, is their biggest problem is finding talent. Yeah. Right. So can you just kind of elaborate on like what you do to find the right people and obviously the importance of, because man, it sounds like you guys' sales training that you bring them through is the best of the best. Yeah. Right. And kind of can't, like, you can recruit all day long, but if you can't get them to perform, right. What good is the recruit? Right. So can you just kind of like really hit on those two things for those team leaders or broker owners that are watching that can really grow and scale their businesses that way?
Yeah, 100%. I think the thing that comes to mind for me is, first off, if you're trying to recruit someone, you've got to have the confidence that what you're recruiting them to, you're going to give them more value than anyone else. And you have the confidence that you're going to be able to train them to where if they do X, Y, and Z, they're going to be successful. Now, you're going to hire a lot of people that can't do X, Y, and Z. But first off, I think it's so important that you have the system in place to where if you hire someone, you can promise them, like, I can look every person in the eye and say, I have hired a guy that literally cannot walk and chew gum. But because he can do X, Y, and Z in my system, he was able to come out and make incredible money and have an incredible experience because he was willing to do these things. And if you can say that, then you're going to have a ton of people that then you can try hiring. And I heard something the other day. It said, anyone that says they are good at hiring is lying. And I don't know if I completely agree with that, but I think what you've got to be good at is firing. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work on your systems and finding people and figuring out those reps that are going to do well. But just to give you an example, I had a guy that I was going to hire that I was really excited about. And he had a wife that wanted to work for me too. And so they came in and I looked at him and I was like, oh, I want this guy, but the girl, she's an awesome girl. She's cute. She's talented. However, I just hadn't had a lot of success with girl sales reps. And so I said, you know what? I'll take you both. Yeah, you can both come out and work for me because I really wanted the guy and I thought he'd do well. Now, the guy did great. He was an average rep. His wife came out and I thought a couple weeks in, she probably would choose to do something else because her husband was out selling. She ended up being one of my top 10 sales reps this last summer. And she's someone that literally I didn't try at all. I didn't put in the effort, the energy. And I've since apologized and said, man, like, I'm a piece of work. I screwed up. I just messed up bad. But by hiring her, I've now got an incredible sales rep because I was willing to hire a lot and be confident that I could look her in the eye and say, with my program, I found that anyone that actually applies it can be successful. And I think that gives me the ability to hire a lot of people. Now, there's still a ton of people that I would never hire because right away I know they're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But it gives me the opportunity to anyone that I think potentially could be good, promise them things that I know I can come through with, and then let's see what happens. If they bomb, that's a bummer, but that's on them because I know my system can bring success to the people that are willing to do what's required. So I don't know if that is the answer you're looking for.
I love it,
that
dude.
gives you some idea.
And you know, I couldn't agree more with. I mean, I've had so many people over the years that I brought on that I was like, oh, this person's going to be a rock star, and then they end up not, you know, being the opposite of what I thought, and then the opposite, you know, right, where I'm like, oh man, I'm questioning the hire, you know, right, thinking I made a mistake, and they shock the shit out of me and become rock stars, right? So, you know, when you're bringing them in, but then when it comes to being good at firing, you know, right? You know, kind of
the hard part.
hire fast, fire fast, or hire slow, fire fast, however you want to frame it. You know, at what point though, you know, because I've made the mistake in the past of somebody's performance wasn't there, firing them, maybe thinking in the moment it was the right thing to do, but then later, as I became a more seasoned entrepreneur, realizing, you know, I didn't have the systems in place that you spoke to earlier. Like I failed them, didn't give those resources. So like before you fire somebody, you know, right, when you're going through that, like what kind of, I guess, discovery process do you go through to make sure it's not an issue with the company or a leadership issue, and it is a character issue, or that's just the wrong person for the job? Yeah, right. Like at what point do you kind of cut that cord, and what do you go through before you do that?
It's a great question. I have one of my leaders, he leads a team of about 12 guys out in Dallas. Literally asked me this question 2 days ago. And he's like, you know what, Chandler, how do I know I didn't screw up? How do I know I'm not responsible for this kid's failure? Because this is my first year leading a team. I'm new at this. I know there are things that I could have done better. And I think the best answer is always assume that it's you. Does that make sense? But get the rep to take responsibility that it's always on them. And I know that's a really hard thing to do, but anytime I have a rep that fails, I want to look at it and I want to assume it was my fault. And I want to see what things I could have done different to give them a better experience. And I want to fix those things. Now, does that mean if I fix those things, that rep would have been successful? I don't know, but nothing is going to happen in a negative way if I'm investing the time, energy, effort, money to perfect my system. I might still lose that rep 100% of the time, but my system is going to get better and it might keep another rep. And so I think if you look at it that way, you can't be hard on yourself. What's done is done. Like crap happens. There are people that have come and worked for me, and I'm sure I've given them a crappy experience. I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years. The experience I'm giving them now is way better than it was 7 years ago, the first year I led a team. But that's because I was willing to say, you know what? I did the best I could with the situation. I'm going to fix what I think I can. And I'm not going to lose sleep over that because I know right now my system is the best out there. Does that mean my system won't be better next year? No, I hope it is.
Yeah. Such powerful stuff, dude. And then when it comes to the training element, because really we're for team leaders and in real estate, and then what you're doing, you know, it's there's so many similarities, you know, right? Our reps are all commission based. Yeah, right. We want to get them trained and all that. But at the end of the day, like you've got a 4-month sales cycle, you know, right? Like they've got to get producing. For them to last, they need to be making the income, you know, right? And you want to get them onboarded and rock and roll as quickly as possible. And, you know, for like new real estate agents, the number one reason I see that most new real estate agents fail is they run out of money, and then they got to go get another part-time job, leads into a full-time job. And they're never able to like really fully commit long enough in real estate to start popping those deals. So it becomes this, you know, kind of fine line, you know, like in a perfect world for me, when I hire a new agent would be like, hey, a month, like we're not going to get in the field for a month. We're just going to walk you through, you know, 4 or 5 hours of, you know, daily training, and then them role playing after that on their own, you know, right. But that's not always possible because they need to get out there selling quicker. You know, what is that balance of being able to train and giving that intensity to the training, but then quickly is possible getting them in the field to give them the resource they need to create that success so they can start producing?
Yeah. I have reps all the time that say, Chandler, I don't think I'm ready to knock a door. Like, I need more training. I need to sit in here and do more training. And I tell them, look, my commitment to you is before work and after work, I will stay up as late as you need me to, putting in time, because I have a vision, I have a goal, I have a commitment I made to you. If we need to stay up till 2 a.m. and we're still up at 8 so that you can go out and start knocking doors, that's what we're going to do. But we're not going to waste your time where you need to be out learning, experiencing, failing in training. I'm going to give you your first 3 days of training where I think you have all of the tools, but then you need to spend time after hours with me if you're really committed to this, because I'm committed to your success. And so I would tell you, look, you cut them loose, you go put in the time, you put in the effort, you fail, because that's going to give you a learning experience in and of itself. But then as a leader, you've got to be willing to make the sacrifice if you really want them to be successful, to train after hours, to put in the extra time. And I see this with money too. I mean, I don't know if it's the same, but if you're successful in this field and you're leading a team, you've got money in the bank. You've done well selling homes on your own, or you've done well selling pest control on your own. And I think if you take on the mentality of, oh, I'm worried they might fail, so I'm not going to invest in them, you will fail as a leader. And I think that's a scary jump to make. But if you want your people to be successful, and that's your vision, and next year I'm going to have 5 people that are blowing it up like I am, I'm going to get that, then be willing to spend your money too. Be willing to spend your time. Be willing to make that sacrifice and take that risk. Because if that's really your vision, the only way you're going to get there is if you go all in on it. So I can't tell you how many guys I know that they come out, I see the work they're putting in, I see the time, I see the potential, I see the right mindset, but I'm not yet seeing the numbers, that I'm willing to make sacrifices, whether it's financially or time or anything else, to get them to where they need to be. And there are reps like that I'll make that sacrifice and I'll lose on. But you win on a lot more than you lose on, and it always comes back financially. And so I would say, don't try and save pennies and end up losing dollars because you've done that.
Then with when it comes to the training component, because of all the great online systems that exist out there, being able to create online universities, right, where they can get all the same training by late at night sitting behind a computer screen, right, watching your in-depth sales training. Have you, I don't know if you guys do any like online university style training, and with my own real estate team, I went to the extreme of only doing online training, and versus all in person. And, I found that there needs to be a little bit of a balance of both, right? They have the online where they can really focus on mastery and doing a lot on their own, right? But the in-person, being able to role play and doing things like that, like having a combination there with that. At least, we've found it on the real estate team to, be more effective when we have a combo of them. Have you found that to hold true in your organization? Or, I'm just really looking for the power of in-person training versus just plugging them in front of a computer.
Oh, definitely. I mean, my first summer actually leading a team, I had 15 guys, and most of them sucked because I was terrible and I felt like I was investing so much time. I mean, every hour of the day I was training, I was working with them. But over time, being able to figure out where me in person is required and where I can create a video, and that's going to do everything that I could have done in person, and figuring out what those things are so that you can scale it, that's huge. And I think the only person that's going to know what those things are is you. I mean, you're in your business, you know what you're good at, you know what you bring to the table. And for me, I've found there are certain things that it doesn't matter how many videos I make about them, they don't have the impact that I do in person. And those are the things that I need to invest my time in. And so I've tried to really, scale in a way that I'm investing my time just in the things that require me. Now, I've got a lot of guys that work for me now that have my same skill set when it comes to figuring out who to hire and fire, figuring out recruiting, figuring out all of these things, but they still rely on me for the certain things that they need. And so I think it's a combination of training people to fill your spot, of putting together online content to fill your spot, and then figuring out where those things are that neither one of those at this point can replace. Now, obviously, everyone's goal is to find the right guy and the right content that can replace everything. And I think that's very possible in any industry. I really think you can get to that point. I just think it's a ton of work, and it's not something you can whip together in a month. I mean, it might take 10 years before you get to that point. And so you just got to figure out how you can scale the fastest and make sure that all your people are still getting just as much, if not more value out of it.
Yeah, love it, man. I know we're going long on time. We might have to do a podcast round number 2 to talk about
I love it.
all the other expertise that you're just crushing it at. But, dude, from everything that you said, everything that you do, I'm looking at this from like, I can't fathom a better foundation for real estate agents, right? To invest a summer into, doing what you do to get those skill sets. And the cool thing is, it's not like they have to give up the real estate license, right? They can, still refer out deals. I mean, this sounds like it's a full-time commitment during those 4 months. But it's like 4 months of a sacrifice of time to maybe growing your real estate company. But that 4 months, the lifetime of gained value and wealth you'll be able to create for the rest of your life, or even a new agent that's thinking about becoming a new agent, like just the foundation that what you guys do, all the great sales training and everything that you go through, man, it just sounds like such a perfect foundation, not just for real estate, but in any type of sales or any entrepreneur really. So with that being said, man, and I'm looking at, like, I've got 3 kids, right? My oldest is 11, so they got a few years, right? But I'm like, dude, man, as soon as they're old enough, man, that first summer, dude, I'm going to connect them with you and get because I can't fathom a better foundation, right? To go out there and just have a lifelong of success, man. So, with that being said, man, I mean, if people that are watching want to get in touch with you, maybe it's something that they want to do themselves, or, they have kids that they would like to get involved with. They have kids that are getting ready to go to college or of age where they can start getting this experience. Like, where's the best place to get in touch with you, to have that conversation with you? Plus, man, I know that you've got a Facebook mastermind group. You've got all this amazing training and content out there that we can all grow from. So if they want to follow you or watch more of your content, where's the best place to do all of that at?
Yeah, so the best place, if you're interested in applying for a job, and we have a setup, it's a pretty simple resume, and then we'll do an interview with one of my leaders. And if that goes well, you can have a chance to interview with me. That's elitesummersales.com. And so that's the best place to go and learn more about the job and what we do. The other thing you can do is, obviously I have a YouTube channel, Chandler David Smith, but I also did a really cool video with a YouTube influencer, Meet Kevin. I think the video's got close to 200,000 views now, but he's a realtor that's probably making over $500,000 a year, and he wanted to try door-to-door sales. So we took him out, I gave him some training, we cut him loose, and we've got the whole video so you can see really what the job is like. So if you just search door-to-door sales, Meet Kevin, that'll give you a better idea of like what we go through, what it's like. And it's a really cool video, something that was fun to do with him. So that's another place. And then probably the easiest place to get access to everything I do is my own website, just chandlerdavidsmith.com. That's got videos on how to invest in real estate. It's got videos on and articles on everything with summer sales, door-to-door sales, real estate investing, all the things I love. And that can direct you to all of those different things I've already talked about. So any of those are a great place to look, or just Google Chandler David Smith and you're right there.
Boom. Awesome. And those that are watching and listening, wherever you're at, we're going to have links to all that below. So we'll have a link directly to that YouTube video showing Kevin going through that training and the results of that, plus everything else that Chandler just mentioned. All right, dude, so one last question for you. Knowing everything that you know now, if you could go back to your younger self when you first started this journey and give yourself 2 pieces of advice, again, knowing everything that you know now, that would have fast forwarded your trajectory to your success journey that you're on, what would those 2 pieces of advice look like?
Maybe I'll twist your question a little bit and then give it, but I would say thank you so much to my 22-year-old self for just putting in the work. Like, I am so grateful to the 22-year-old me that he just grinded so that I can be at the place that I'm in. I think the other piece of advice I would give is the earlier me, I wish I would have taken a lot more risk on the real estate I was buying. I was real conservative at easing into it, and it's still been huge, but I wish I would have bought more deals when I was sitting on money back then. And then, I don't know, man, it's a hard question because I love the path I've been on. Everything that I've gotten out of it, I've learned from it. And so I think just like put in the time, put in the work, and you won't regret anything. I mean, if you've worked hard and done it with a good attitude and never had the like, woe is me mindset, you're never going to look back and be unhappy with what you've done.
Yeah, love it. Powerful stuff. And those watching, listen, I know I interviewed podcasts with this, but information without implementation is truly just the start of delusion. Information is no longer power. It's taking that information, taking massive action on it. That gives you the power to go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Chandler shared so many amazing pieces of advice with you guys today. Take something that you learned, go out there, take immediate action on it, and again, go out there and create the life that you know you want and deserve. And Chandler, man, this has been so much fun. It's such a huge honor. I know how busy you are, and I truly appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here, dude. This has been awesome.
Well, hey, thank you for having me. It was a blast. You're a legend, and hopefully I'll look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Yeah, 100%, my friend. All right, you guys, thank you again, and we will see you next time.